Star Wars The Acolyte sucked. And that's probably what a lot of y'all want to hear from me, but I'm going to be the first one to tell you, it actually wasn't that bad. So first and foremost, let me address the elephant in the room before we actually get into the meat and potatoes of what season 1 was all about and my actual review of season 1. Let's talk about the hate and the racism that this show actually received. Not only did all the actors and the showrunner herself receive hate and racism, but obviously the show received so much hate and nitpicking. Like, one of the first things that people said about the first episode was when the ship caught on fire, right? Why are you so mad that a ship is catching on fire in space when we've seen that multiple times throughout Star Wars? It literally does not make sense. Again, y'all are just nitpicking and trying to hide behind your racism, which is what a lot of the shields within the Star Wars community do. They'll sit here and make these unnecessary nitpicks about the show or, product or whatever it is, and sit here and hate and blame it on Disney or whatnot, when again, they're just hiding behind their hate and racism. It's so annoying. They do it every single time. And episode 1 wasn't the end of all that. They did it every single episode, especially the episode where we had the flashback, episode 3, where we actually got to see young Osha. Everybody seemed to just hate that episode. Now, yes, there were, legitimate criticisms about that episode, but again, to sit there and just nitpick every single little thing is unnecessary. And again, like I said, you're hiding behind hate and racism, especially if you're not going to sit there and explain why you don't like something. To sit there and not explain why you don't like something and just nitpick, it just gives off weird vibes. And most people already know a lot of people in the Star Wars community are kind of racist. So if you're just going to sit there and just nitpick, it's giving off that you're a racist. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Now, to get into what I did and didn't like about season 1. Now, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and be the type of person that's going to give any particular Star Wars property all the praises and whatnot, because nothing is perfect in this world. Just like this show was not perfect. There are certain things about the show that I just did not like or just didn't quite make sense to me, especially at the time the episodes were airing. After season 1 ended, it did kind of make sense. A lot of things did make sense, but as it was going, I do wish that it could have just been paced a little bit better, which, yes, the pacing was a little off throughout the entire show. Now, to go back into that episode 3 part, yes, episode 3 was kind of where it felt like everything halted because there was no explanation as to, like, oh, we're going to do a flashback or anything. A lot of shows tend to sit here and say 20-something years earlier or 16 years earlier instead of just, hey, figure it out yourself, which again, there's nothing wrong with figuring it out yourself, but it just feels a little off. And then a lot of things were a little bit too dialogue heavy throughout the entire show. One of the reasons why I feel like a lot of people tended to hate this episode the most, and not necessarily anything with the episode itself, is the fact that, yes, Osha and May's mother is technically in a lesbian relationship, which there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But I am almost positive everybody hated this episode simply because of that reason. When you go online and you see everybody talking about that, it's kind of giving a little bit of racism. But besides that, the only other issue that I had with this show, chanting when Osha and May were doing their ritual, just seemed a little cheesy. But hey, it's Star Wars. Star Wars is technically, a kid's property. It's for, kids, as George Lucas said. So things are going to be cheesy. Star Wars has always been cheesy. So yeah. Other than that, there wasn't anything that I necessarily felt was off, besides the fact that at the end of episode 5, I believe, where Osha and May actually have a chance to talk for the first time, that just felt a little weird. And I don't understand whether or not it was coming from the direction that Amanda was given from the directors and the showrunner, or if it was possibly her acting itself. But I kind of lean towards the whole end that it was probably the direction that she was given, because obviously this is the scene that they went with and that they chose. So again, I feel like it was more or less the direction that she was given and not necessarily her acting. Other than that, I felt like the show was pretty good. I enjoyed pretty much everything. I enjoyed the setting, with the High Republic era. I enjoyed the lightsaber fights. Oh my God. The lightsaber fights were some of the best lightsaber action that we have seen within Star Wars. I know a lot of people are going to get mad at that. There's, oh, don't talk about Duel of the Fates like that or whatever. But yes, this is up there with Duel of the Fates, if not maybe a little bit better. And yeah, I said it. But yes, the lightsaber fights were spectacular. Leslie did her thing. And you could really see how much Leslie actually loves Star Wars within the lightsaber fights and in this show in general. She put a lot of care within the lightsaber fights. And to segue into the lightsaber fighting, obviously a lot of the lightsaber fighting was between Qimir and the Jedi, throughout the entire show, right? Qimir is that guy. He's definitely that guy. Obviously, he's not a Sith. During the show, a lot of people seem to have thought that he may be like a Knight of Ren or something, which he could very well still be. But I'm not quite sure, based off some things that I'll get into a little bit later. I'm not quite sure, even though you can technically hear Kylo Ren's music play twice throughout the show, and Leslie did confirm that that is definitely Kylo Ren's music, so it could play into it, but who knows. Something else that I did like about Qimir, obviously he's playing into the fact that obviously he's a rogue Jedi or a dark Jedi, right? Because come to find out, he's Vanessa Rose, possibly her first Padawan, or an older Padawan, if you will, because you can clearly see on Qimir's back, he has some scars, and those scars look like they came from a lightsaber whip. Obviously, Vanessa Rose has a lightsaber whip, so, and then you can definitely see him and Vanessa Rose kind of connecting through the Force at the end of the season, so you can definitely tell if you didn't already kind of piece two and two together from the earlier episodes. And then Qimir's armor, the Cortosis armor, was a nice addition to the show. Again, this is another thing that Leslie added because she is such a huge Star Wars fan, and I love the fact that she is actually a fan. They actually gave the show to somebody who's truly a fan of the show. Now again, yes, there are going to be things that aren't necessarily all that good, but you can't please everybody, right? But with the Cortosis armor, it was definitely something that was a nice, like I said, it was a nice addition to the show. The fact that Cortosis, for those that may not know, is lightsaber resistant, and it can only be found, even in Legends and seemingly in canon too, can only be found on one specific planet, and it's still very rare on that planet. So I did like the fact that that was where Qimir's hideout was, right? So I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I love the way that he actually used the Cortosis, because as he's literally fighting all of those Jedi, he's literally fighting every single Jedi. He went up against, I want to say, maybe 8 other Jedi, and he literally killed all of them except for one. It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild. He was pretty nasty. He was pretty nasty and very powerful, actually. Very powerful. The part that got me was how he was quote unquote introduced at the end of episode 4, when he kind of floated down behind Osha. That was really cool. And he flicked her away, and the Force pushed literally all of those Jedi away. That really showed you how powerful he truly was. And then, like I said, he killed all the other Jedi. And to see Yord and I believe her name is Jackie get murked like they did is wild. For one, Jackie put in so much work, and I am so proud of her. I appreciate how much work her actress did to get as nice as she was with the lightsaber in the show. She was pretty damn good. Now Yord, on the other hand, he was okay. I never really liked Yord, me personally, and coming from a black man, I just don't like the whole Killmonger locks thing, because for one, it didn't even look real. The locks didn't even look real. Osha's locks looked a lot better. They look so much better, especially the scene in episode 3 when the flashback scene where they were getting their locks done. I was like, yes, this scene was definitely done by a black person, because not only they're getting their locks retwisted by sisters, obviously they're sisters as well. So it was definitely a nice addition. It was definitely something good for obviously the black community for that particular part. But Yord's hair, on the other hand, just did not look like the hairstylist for the show was, lack of a better term, as a black person. I really wish that they had done a little bit better with his hair, made it look a little bit more real. But yeah, but like I said, sad to see both Yord and Jackie go the way that he did. So Yeah, Qimir took them out. But I do want to touch back on the Cortosis thing real quick. Now, like I said earlier, Cortosis can only be found on a specific planet, which is the planet that Qimir's hideout is on. About halfway through episode 8, when Osha and Qimir get ready to travel back to that planet that Osha and May were born on, as you see their ship leaving, you see a figure hiding in the cave or coming out of the cave. At first you see fingers, and at that point I knew exactly who it was, not only because of the fact that Leslie did say that 2 Sith, she specifically said 2 Sith would appear, so I'm not sure if there was somebody else that maybe we have not seen, or maybe I just didn't pick up on quite yet. But the one that popped up, because not only could you see their fingers, but the camera, cut and turned around and we saw the figure's face for the first time in live action. We finally get to see Darth Plagueis. Yes, the Darth Plagueis the Wise. And you could tell it was him because it was a moon, and obviously they had Sith eyes, so it was definitely Darth Plagueis. And for anyone that might not know specifically who Darth Plagueis is, the only thing you might not know from him is what Palpatine said in Revenge of the Sith. I highly recommend reading the Darth Plagueis novel. Yes, it's Legends, but it dives very, very deep into not only how Palpatine became a Sith apprentice, but it goes deep into Darth Plagueis' background and everything as well. So I highly recommend reading that, because I feel as if Leslie is probably going to pull a lot of stuff from that novel, because she's already pulled the whole Cortosis thing from the novel, and the fact that, the planet that they're on. So definitely do that, because I also feel like the whole vergence in the Force that they were speaking of to assist in the, the quote unquote twins' birth. Again, they're not actually twins. They're one being, but they're just split in two. I feel as if that was Plagueis originally practicing to, create life or whatnot. And that's what created the vergence in the Force. And obviously that dark side witch cult kind of caught on to that. They're like, let's use what Plagueis did. Obviously they probably didn't know about Plagueis, so yeah, I feel like that Plagueis probably had something to do with that vergence on that planet. And that's just my own speculation. But yes, something else that I thoroughly enjoyed was the ending where essentially Osha turned to the dark side and killed her master, which I thought was crazy. She also bled his kyber crystal, she bled his kyber crystal. It was so good, because come to find out because when he started getting force choked, I thought it was Plagueis coming out of nowhere, but no, it was her force choking him. She was turning to the dark side in that moment. And the crazy thing is, she saw a vision beforehand, like the previous episode or the very beginning of the episode. She thought it was May that was getting ready to kill him, but come to find out, it was actually her. And that's something that I want to pinpoint. The writing, when people like to say, oh, the writing is bad or whatnot, like, no, it wasn't. Again, you just like to nitpick. You got your blinders on like you're a horse at a racetrack. You're only focused on one thing instead of seeing the bigger picture. You're getting upset because you didn't like one episode, or the episodes don't seem to flow to you, instead of looking at it from a entire season and judging it that way. I think that's where a lot of people fail. But yes, that whole section at the end of the episode with Osha turning to the dark side was amazing. And then the fact that she agrees to go and train with Qimir, as long as they erase her sister's memory, so that way they can't track her and whatnot. I thought that was really, really, really good. That was really good. And then to end things, Vanestra Rose sitting there lying and blaming it on my boy, blaming the whole situation on my boy. Sitting there lying to the Senate like that. I thought that was kind of crazy that she lied to the Senate, and then she goes and tells Yoda. Now, based off how the Jedi do everything and whatnot, do I personally feel like Yoda probably had, or probably will, because we'll probably see some of the ramifications from all this in season 2, but do I feel like Yoda has something to do with it, as far as her lying and whatnot? Potentially. Probably Yoda and the rest of the Jedi Council, yes, potentially. But that's yet to be seen. Especially with how pretentious the Jedi are within the prequel trilogy. So yeah, And like I said, all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed the season. The season was really, really good. Yes, there were some bad parts. There were some good parts. There were some slow parts, and there were parts that were really, really amazing. I just implore everybody that had some gripes about the show and weren't necessarily racist or anything like that to just give it a rewatch and judge it off of the season as a whole instead of on a episode to episode basis. Now, what do I think that they could do to make season 2 better? Because I definitely do feel like they will be making a season 2, is I feel as if they need to work on pacing. I feel like pacing was their biggest issue with this season. If they could get the pacing down packed, I feel like The Acolyte will be one of the better Disney Plus Star Wars shows. I genuinely do. If they can work on pacing, it will be top notch, especially with the fact that we have a lot of things to look forward to with, you know, Osha's training, potentially what they're going to do with May, whether or not, you know, she's going to go to prison or whatever the case may be. How Plagueis and potentially, I want to say Tenebrous at this current moment, but more than likely just Plagueis, what they're going to do, how that whole conflict is going to end. I definitely want to see how they're going to do that. Again, pacing is going to be their biggest key. They have to make sure season 2 is paced well. Other than that, I thoroughly look forward to season 2. But as far as season 1 is concerned, let me know what your thoughts were in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this video, and if you enjoy Star Wars in general, be sure to go ahead and like and share this video out, and then subscribe and ring the bell to receive notifications so that way you know every time I happen to load some more Star Wars content. And with that being said, this was my overall review of season 1. I didn't want to sit here and review every single episode because I feel like that would have been a bit much for me personally. But again, this is my review for season 1. With that said, I will catch y'all in the next Star Wars video. Peace, and may the Force be with you.